When countries talk about power, they talk about GDP, population, and growth. But there is a more basic metric that quietly decides everything: tax capacity of a country. Because a country that cannot reliably collect revenue cannot build infrastructure, cannot fund defense, cannot invest in people. India's growth story is impressive, but India's tax story is weak. Where is the problem? Technical, systematic? No. The problem lies in political will and consensus. The question should be asked: how long 3% of India's middle class and salaried people will pay for 1.4 billion people's food and livelihood? And today we are going to break that down using numbers, not slogans. Chapter 1: The hard comparison. Let's begin with data. Tax to GDP ratios in 2023. France, about 44%. Germany, 38%. UK, 35%. Canada, 35%. Japan, 34%. United States, 25%. India, 11 to 12%. Even after adjusting for federal structure and state taxes, India remains far below both advanced and many middle-income economies. This gap is not cosmetic. At India's GDP size, every 1% of GDP in tax equals roughly 3.3 lakh crore. That means India is leaving 6 rupees to 10 lakh crore per year on the table compared to even modest international benchmarks. A common argument is that India is a poor country, so taxes must be low. But this explanation breaks down when we look at peers. Countries like Brazil and South Africa collect around 25 to 30% of GDP as tax. The difference is not income. The difference is formalization and enforcement. India's economy grows fast, but large parts of that growth are statistically invisible. Chapter 2: India's tax net problem. Now, let's talk about the tax net. India has about 1.4 billion people. Only around 80 million income tax returns are filed. Out of those, only 30 million individuals actually pay income tax. That is roughly 2 to 3% of the population. In contrast, the US, UK, Germany, and Japan have over 60% of adults in the tax system. Payroll withholding ensures near universal compliance. India's tax base is narrow because 1. Over 85% of workers are informal. 2. Most income is not reported at source. 3. Property ownership is poorly taxed. 4. Capital and agricultural income are often misused to avoid tax. This creates a structural ceiling on revenue. Before GST, India's indirect tax system was fragmented. There were multiple central and state taxes, each with its own base and compliance rules. This created 3 problems. First, cascading taxes reduced efficiency. Second, firms stayed small to avoid thresholds. Third, evasion was structurally easy. As a result, India's tax to GDP ratio stagnated around 10 to 11% despite high growth. The system could not scale with the economy. Chapter 3: What GST actually achieved. GST fixed a structural problem. It unified the market and created a digital transaction trail. Key outcomes: over 14 million GST registrations. E-invoicing covering majority of B2B transactions. Monthly GST collections exceeding 1.8 lakh crore rupees. This improved indirect tax buoyancy. But GST had a clear limitation. It improved visibility of transactions, not visibility of income and wealth. Even after GST, personal income tax contributes a small share of GDP. Property tax contributes less than 0.2% of GDP. Wealth and inheritance taxes are absent. Tax exemptions cost several percent of GDP in foregone revenue. India relies heavily on consumption taxes while underutilizing asset and income taxation. This makes the system regressive and fiscally weak. Chapter 4: Why most income never enters the tax net. There are 4 concrete reasons individual income escapes taxation in India. 1. Absence of payroll-style withholding. In advanced economies, income tax is deducted before salary reaches the worker. In India, only formal salaried employees face full withholding. Over 85% of workers are informal or self-employed. If tax is not deducted at source, compliance collapses. This is not theory, it is observed globally. 2. Self-employment and underreporting. India has one of the largest self-employed populations in the world. For self-employed individuals, income is self-declared. Expenses are easily inflated. Cash income is rarely reported. Studies consistently show self-employed income is underreported by 30 to 50%, even in rich countries. In India, the gap is likely higher. 3. Property and rental income invisibility. Urban land and housing prices in India have multiplied several times in 2 decades. But property tax and rental income tax have barely moved. Why? Because property registries are fragmented, valuations are outdated, rental markets are informal. This is a massive leakage. 4. Legal misuse of exemptions. Agricultural income is exempt by design. But in practice, non-agricultural income is often reclassified. Large landowners pay little to no income tax. This loophole alone costs the exchequer tens of thousands of crores annually. Some argue that India should simply raise income tax rates. This would be a mistake. India's problem is not low rates. India's problem is too few taxpayers. Raising rates on the same small base encourages evasion, pushes income further underground, penalizes formal workers. Every country that succeeded expanded the base before raising rates. There are clear international lessons. PAYE, pay as you earn, used in UK, Japan, Germany. Tax is deducted at source. Compliance exceeds 90%. Third-party reporting. Banks, employers, platforms report income automatically. Property and asset linkage. If you own assets, the state knows you have income. India lacks all three at scale. Chapter 5. The fix. What India must do. This is the most important section. India does not need higher tax rates. India needs structural base expansion. Expand the direct tax net using existing data. GST already reveals turnover, value addition, and supply chains. This data must be systematically linked to income tax filings. If a firm reports 10 crore rupees turnover under GST, zero or minimal profit under income tax should trigger automated scrutiny. This alone can add 1 to 1.5% of GDP over time. Property and land tax reform. High impact, low visibility cost. India's property tax collection is among the lowest globally. Urban land values have exploded, but tax assessments have not. Reforms needed. GIS-based property mapping, market-linked valuation, independent municipal valuation authorities. International experience suggests this can add 1 to 2% of GDP. Rationalize tax exemptions and incentives. India forgoes massive revenue through exemptions and special regimes. Most incentives lack sunset clauses, are poorly evaluated, benefit narrow groups. All tax incentives must expire automatically unless renewed based on performance data. Strengthen withholding and third-party reporting. Advanced economies rely on withholding. India must expand. TDS coverage, platform-based tax collection, real-time reporting. Tax collected before income reaches the taxpayer dramatically improves compliance. Use technology for enforcement, not fear. Data integration across PAN, banking, GST, property records should be used for risk scoring, not mass harassment. This improves compliance without destroying trust. Chapter 6. Why this problem is so hard to fix. By now, the solutions are clear. The data exists. The technology exists. The economic logic is well understood. So the real question is not what to do. The real question is, why hasn't it been done? The answer lies in political will and consensus. And no political parties wanted to fix it because of their vote bank politics and political equity. 3% of income tax payers are not any political party's vote banks. These 3% constitutes salaried middle and high income group people, HNIs, and individual businesses. So no political parties care about these people. They only care about majority of the other 97% people who are their core vote banks. Let's dissect one. Farmers, the majority chunk that never pay and tax. Agricultural income in India is largely exempt from income tax. This was originally designed to protect small and marginal farmers. But over time, it created a political firewall. Any attempt to tax agricultural income or even to seriously monitor it is immediately framed as being anti-farmer. In a country where over half the population depends directly or indirectly on agriculture, no government wants to be seen as taxing farmers. Even though the majority of agricultural income is earned by a small wealthy minority, the political messaging cost is too high, so the exemption stays and the loophole remains. 2. Informal traders and urban vote banks. Small traders, shopkeepers, transport operators, and informal businesses form a powerful electoral bloc. They are numerous, they are organized, and they vote. Bringing them fully into the tax net means formal accounting, digital trails, and regular scrutiny. This is economically necessary, but politically dangerous. Any government that pushes too hard risks street protests, trade shutdowns, and electoral backlash. GST itself showed this tension. Initial compliance pushback forced repeated relaxations. So enforcement becomes selective and gradual. 3. Caste equations and income visibility. In India, economic identity is inseparable from social identity. Taxation is not perceived as neutral. Many occupational groups, often aligned with specific caste clusters, operate in sectors that are informal and cash-heavy. Aggressive taxation of these sectors can easily be framed as targeted harassment. Governments therefore prefer ambiguity. Invisibility becomes political safety. 4. The middle class paradox. India's formal middle class already pays most of the income tax. They are salaried. Tax is deducted at source. Evasion is hard. But politically, they are a weak constituency. They are fragmented. They protest online, not on the streets. And they rarely vote based on tax policy alone. So the burden stays concentrated on them because they are easy to tax and hard to mobilize. 5. Short electoral cycles versus long-term reform. Expanding the tax net delivers pain first and benefits later. Compliance costs rise immediately. Revenue gains are gradual. Political rewards are uncertain. In a system with 5-year election cycles, long-term fiscal reform often loses to short-term populism. Borrowing is easier than reform. This is not about one party or one ideology. Every government faces the same structural constraints. Tax reform creates visible losers before visible winners, and democracies respond to pressure. That is why India has high indirect taxes, low direct tax participation, endless exemptions. It is not an accident, it is a political equilibrium. The hard truth we must accept. India does not lack technical solutions. India lacks political consensus. Until taxation is reframed not as punishment but as shared citizenship, the tax net will expand slowly, carefully, and incompletely. Which means the real challenge ahead is not designing better tax policy. It is building the political courage to implement it.